The cyberpunk genre has been a staple in video games for a while now. Deus Ex, System Shock, and Perfect Dark cemented themselves as early classics. Even more in recent years, games like Katana Zero, Ghost Runner, and more infamously, Cyberpunk 2077 were arguably well-made action-adventure games set in a dystopian future. Now while these games are all great arguably, as action and/or adventure games go, there is one game that breaks away from the mold and crafted a story with a cyberpunk setting that doesn't involve wanton violence. A game that encourages players to just mix drinks and change some lives. That game is VA-11 Hall A, or Valhalla, a Cyberpunk Bartender action. VA-11 Hall A, or more commonly known as Valhalla, is a visual novel made by Sukeban Games, who've only made 5 games to date, including Valhalla and a sequel called N1RV&-A, or Nirvana, set to be released in When It's Done. Valhalla is a critically acclaimed game with glowing reviews such as Catgirl, 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 oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, came for the waifus, stayed for the cryfus. There isn't enough Rule 34 of this game. If you're an alcoholic weeb, this is a 10 out of 10. I want Jill to step on my balls. I want Jill to gently press her foot against my balls. I'm an alcoholic. I want Jill to rail me from behind. I want Jill to step on me. What's with this stepping? I hate anime. And women. This game has both. Recommended. Valhalla takes place in Glitch City, a dystopian tax haven where corporations and criminal empires reign supreme. You play through the eyes of Julianne Stingray, or Jill, a measly bartender in a back alley bar called VA-11 Hall A, or more famously known as Valhalla. The story is told through the interactions and conversations Jill has with her clients, which range from Catgirl, Booba Hacker, Legal Robot Loli, Twitch Thought, and my favorite, George motherfucking Costanza. And if you're wondering, yes, this character was modeled after that guy from Seinfeld. From said interactions, the player will get a better understanding of the lore of Glitch City and its denizens. Aside from that, the player can also browse through forums and clickbait articles from Jill's phone to gather whatever useless information people feel like sharing, much like Reddit. Unlike other games that have branching storylines that use dialogue choices to determine which path to take, the story of Valhalla instead branches based on what drinks you serve your customers, which is an ingenious way that mixes together the visual novel staple of branching paths with the style and concept of the game. It also ensures the players pay attention to the conversation Jill has with her clients, as you need to focus to know what to serve them. Given that this is a visual novel that has many waifus, I think I should make it clear that this is not hentai. Dude! What the fuck? Are they gone? Good. Given that this is a visual novel, there is a lot to read. Dude! What the fuck? Are they gone? Great. There is a lot of dialogue in this game. Around 10 hours to be exact, but 10 hours well fucking spent. The dialogue is fluid, natural, and the topics discussed might be unfamiliar to some gamers, such as having friends and talking to women. But the heavier topics are what make these characters more than just 2B 8-bit PNGs. Each of the characters that Jill converses with has their own share of baggage, from family troubles, insecurities, all the way to dealing with existential crises. But scrolling through text is only half the game. The other half is the drink mixing minigame, where you mix drinks manually depending on what your clients order. The order can be straightforward, like asking for a specific drink, while others might be a little bit more vague, like asking for a drink of a specific type or flavor, all the way to the more cryptic orders that the player will have to use more than 10% of their brains to decipher. Mixing the drinks isn't as complicated as it sounds, however. All sorts of mixology information is stored on Valhalla's computer, of which the player can refer to at any given moment. Even some of the more cryptic orders can be solved merely by looking through the drinks menu. After a full day's of work, you get to tally how much you earned on that day depending on the quality of your service, and if you've messed up any of the orders, there will be a penalty. Nothing too harsh. You just don't get the perfect service bonus, which brings me to the finance management portion of the game. This is a relatively simple mechanic where Jill just has to plan her finances because being an adult, she has the depressing responsibility to pay her bills. However, just like the mixing mechanic where the player is free to serve whatever drink to the clients, the player is also free to use the money earned however they want, at the cost of angering Jill's landlord. Players can use the money to either purchase items that would prevent Jill from getting distracted at work or purchasing nano camo skins for that tiny bit of customizability. I feel it's worth pointing out that getting distracted at work is nothing more than a mild inconvenience, as it only means that Jill doesn't remember what drinks she's supposed to make for her clients, and it's up to the players to remember for her. Aside from that, these purchases are just cosmetic in nature. While we're on the topic of appearances, the aesthetics of Valhalla are great. If you're into that 80s retro look, then you'll definitely love the aesthetics of Valhalla. It's reminiscent of the old PC-98 games. as I was told. I've never really experienced PC98 because I was mere calm at the time, but looking through some old gameplay footage of PC98 games, Sukeban Games really nailed it in the head on that one. The aesthetics of Valhalla is relatively simple. A 16-bit motif with a slightly modern yet retro-esque touch. Does that make sense? I don't know, but go with it. It makes me feel like I have some sort of art sense, okay? Though the 8-bit, 16-bit art style has dominated the indie games market over the past few years, I will say that Valhalla's art style works in tandem with the game's overall feel. Coupled with the amazing soundtrack, the game is just meant to be played while you're wrapped in a warm blanket with a cup of G Fuel on the side. Netflix and chill. More like Valhalla, leave me the fuck alone. I'm having an existential crisis and I need to organize my thoughts while ignoring the injustices of the world by playing a video game, so please come back later when I have calmed down, little will ya? The soundtrack in the game is great, giving that nostalgic 80s synthwave vibe, and the game has a clever way of presenting them. All the tracks in the game are accessible to the player via the jukebox in the bar, with some locked tracks that the player can unlock by purchasing them at the store. So you're free to choose whichever song you want to be played in the bar, either at the start of Jill's shift or after she comes back from a break. The soundtracks vary from melancholic to upbeat, so the atmosphere in the bar will have a totally different feel depending on which song is playing at the time. This can lead to some of the heavier scenes in the game feel less intense than intended, which can be a fun thing to do on the second playthrough. I know this is a very emotional scene, but the soundtrack just slaps. The writing in the game is absolutely profound. The characters and their stories are all interesting, and more importantly, relatable. You can put as much drip as you want on any video game character and probably win a couple of beauty pageants or two, but without any motivations or personality, that drip is just an overpriced compensation. All the characters in Valhalla are visually interesting and distinct and have the personality to boot. Even the goddamn brain in a jar has more personality than most characters in some AAA titles. My only problem with the game was that it ended. Give me more robot lolis and cardboard-chested bartenders and I'll gladly give you more of my non-existent money. The game left me with a mix of euphoria and melancholy, or saudade, which is Portuguese that means it's a deep emotional state of nostalgic or profound melancholic longing. See, I too can Google random shit and pose it as established knowledge. Even though it would be weird for me to say that I've built an emotional connection to these characters, that's exactly what happened. All the characters are interesting and relatable, the story is engaging, the art style is aesthetically pleasing, and the soundtrack just fucking slaps. And the game has a very clear and beautiful message. A message to not live in the past. Regrets, mistakes, and traumas are inevitable in life, but we can't let it control our lives. For when we allow the past to cloud our judgment, the present will merely seem like a blur. And before we know it, the future will be riddled with more regret and sorrow. The past is the past because it has passed. And the present is the gift that we should cherish because in mere moments, it will have passed us by. So rather than delve into the past, why not focus on the present and make some drinks and save some lives?
Ecstasy, so burned into my mind. You're a drug for me, pure and crystalline.